Some battles are fought with fists, others are fought with paperwork, whispers, and family secrets. When I was 24, I thought buying my first home meant freedom. I had no idea it would trigger the ugliest war of my life, a war not with strangers, but with the very people who raised me. My name's Cody Walker, and at 24 I signed the papers for my first house, a modest 2-bedroom on a quiet street, paint peeling, yard overgrown, and a stubborn gate that never latched. It wasn't much to outsiders, but to me it was the payoff for nearly a decade of sacrifice. I'd supported myself since 16, juggling 2 jobs through high school, skipping parties, passing on vacations, stocking gas station shelves at 3 a.m. While friends posted beach photos, my parents never offered money for rent or college, and I never asked. I figured if I wanted a future, I'd have to build it. Naively, I thought they'd be proud. Instead, silence, and then the barbecue. It was pitched as a casual weekend cookout, cousins, burgers, beer. Mommy even asked me to come early to set up tables. I took it as an olive branch after years of cold distance since I moved out at 18, but walking into that backyard felt like stepping into a pressure cooker. My younger brother Dean, 22, unemployed, still living at home, lounged on the patio like a king. My parents coddled him as if he were made of glass. He barely looked up from his phone when I arrived. I shrugged it off, hauled chairs, tried to play it cool. Half an hour later the family arrived, drinks in hand, laughter in the air, until Mom clapped for attention and smiled strangely. "Everyone, Cody's here," she said, "and apparently he thinks he's better than the rest of us because he bought a house." Cousins laughed awkwardly. Heat crept up my neck. Thanks," I said, trying to stay light. Dad wasn't joking either. "Must be nice playing landlord while your brother can't even get ahead," he said loudly. "Some of us actually care about family." That one hit like a slap. I'd lent Dean my car last month when his broke. I'd never said no to small favors, yet here I was, painted as selfish. I sat down with a paper plate hoping it would pass, but Mom doubled down. She told everyone how unfair it was that I owned a home while Dean struggled, leaving out how he'd turned down 3 job interviews. Then, right before we ate, she pointed at me across the table. "You stole your brother's future." Fork frozen mid-air. I blanked. "Excuse me? You bought that house before Dean had a chance," she said. "Now the market's impossible. How's he supposed to start a life when you locked him out?" The house I bought was a foreclosure I'd saved for since 17. It had nothing to do with Dean, yet no one, not Dad, not my drama-loving aunt, spoke up, just stares. I left early, thanked them for dinner, drove home with my chest tight, jaw aching from clenching it. That night I sat in my empty living room. No furniture, just boxes and a folding chair, replaying Mom's words. Stole his future, like buying something with my own money was theft. For the first time, anger replaced hurt. A week later came the knock at my door, a process server. Inside the envelope, a lawsuit. Intentional interference with Dean's economic prospects. My parents were literally suing me for buying a house first. Something in me hardened. This wasn't a family squabble anymore. This was war. I drove to their house for answers. Mom opened the door like nothing had happened. "You forced our hand," she said. "We had no choice." Dad emerged from the kitchen. "You knew your brother was planning to move out," he said. "You scooped up a house before he could, crushing him." "What house was Dean going to buy?" I asked. "He doesn't even have a job." "Not yet," Dad replied. "They plan to help him with a down payment." I'd ruined it by buying in the same neighborhood. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You were going to buy Dean a house, but now you can't because there aren't enough houses?" Mom crossed her arms. "It's about fairness. You could have waited, but you had to rub it in our faces." I laughed bitterly. "I didn't even tell you until after closing. I thought you'd be proud." Her pitying look cut deeper than anger. "We would be proud if you thought about someone other than yourself." That's when I knew, nothing I said would matter. I left before I said something I'd regret. Over the next weeks, the family turned into a PR machine for Dean. My aunt urged me to do the right thing and sign over the house. My cousin sent me articles on housing inequality with a thumbs up emoji. Even Grandma called, disappointed I'd put myself before family. Dean posted cryptic messages online. "Some people don't care if you sink as long as they swim." His friends piled on. I became the villain in a story I hadn't agreed to. At the next family dinner, Dean sat at Dad's seat, smirking. "Oh look, the homewrecker's here," he said. Mom added, "We're giving you a chance to make this right before things get ugly. Sell the house, split the profit with your brother, and we'll drop the lawsuit." "Drop the lawsuit?" I said. "You think I'm going to give up my house?" Dad leaned forward. "You wouldn't have bought that place without the lessons we taught you. You owe us." I took a deep breath. "I paid rent here from 16 on. I don't owe you now." Dean chimed in. "You've always been jealous. You can't stand that Mom and Dad love me more, so you try to buy your way into being the golden child." "Dean," I said, "I don't want to be the golden child. I just wanted a house. You're the one making it a competition." He shrugged. "If you cared about this family, you'd give me a chance to have what you have." That night Mom left a voicemail. "If you don't cooperate, Cody, we can escalate. We can make things very difficult for you." Sitting in my bare living room, I no longer felt like their son. I felt like their enemy. Anxiety hardened into determination. I wasn't going to roll over. Then things got worse. My bank flagged 2 attempts to access my account using my personal data. Same IP both times. My parents' internet provider. My insurance company called to verify I wanted to cancel my homeowner's policy. I hadn't. Someone had answered my security question. My mother's maiden name. This was deliberate sabotage. I confronted them. "Did you hack my bank?" I asked. Dean smirked. "Maybe you should have better passwords." "You tried to break into my account?" I said. He shrugged. "Just wanted to see how much you had. Maybe you'd have enough to help out." Mom put down her knitting. "Don't be dramatic. Families share things. Families don't steal." I snapped. Dad stood, towering. "Lower your voice. Don't disrespect us." "You sued me," I said. "You tried to cancel my insurance. You hacked my bank, and you're worried about respect?" Mom's face hardened. "We had no choice. You forced us." Something in me broke. They would cross any line. Soon utilities began calling, confirming cancellation requests I never made. At 3 a.m., the fire department pounded on my door over a fake gas leak report. Neighbors whispered. I installed cameras. One night the alert pinged, Dean in a hoodie pulling my for sale sign from the yard, flipping the bird at the camera. I printed the footage and filed a police report. They told me to consider a restraining order. I hadn't wanted to go that far, but after weeks of psychological warfare, I had no choice. 2 nights later, Mom and Dad banged on my door furious. "Why'd you call the police on your brother?" "Because he trespassed," I said calmly. Dad's face went red. "You're destroying this family. You did that yourselves," I replied. Mom's voice turned icy. "If you go through with that restraining order, you won't have a family left." "I don't think I do anymore," I said, and closed the door. Then came the HR letter. Anonymous complained accusing me of fraud and embezzlement. My stomach dropped. I'd worked at that company 3 years, always dependable, never complaining. Now HR was investigating me like a criminal. They put me on administrative leave. Losing my job would risk losing my house, and deep down I knew that's what my parents wanted. The next weeks were a blur of sleepless nights, gathering documents for HR while preparing for court. The stress showed. Friends noticed me pulling away. My family is suing me and trying to ruin my life isn't casual conversation. The mortgage company called. My credit score had dipped. Foreclosure loomed. I sat on my living room floor among unopened boxes, staring at the wall, anger draining into something heavier, resolve. I'd been here before, 16, backpack full of clothes, realizing my parents wouldn't help and surviving anyway. That night I decided, I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't sell my house, I wouldn't give Dean a dime. Even if I had to crawl through every obstacle, I'd fight. First I hired a better lawyer, sold my old car to pay the retainer, bought a beater just to get to work. My new attorney listened, built a strategy. I froze my credit, changed every password, added 2-factor authentication, installed a better camera system with cloud storage, documented everything in a binder, calls, letters, police reports, drive-bys. At work, I stayed professional. HR slipped once mentioning the caller had referenced my family feud. Confirmation. I kept quiet online, resisting the urge to blast the truth. Instead, I built my case. Then HR cleared me completely, flagged the complaint as harassment, and my manager offered me a bigger project plus a raise. After months of being treated like a villain, I was finally seen for who I was. I unpacked my boxes, fixed the gate, planted a garden. My house became home. But I hadn't forgotten. Digging through public records, I found my parents had taken a second mortgage and were behind on payments. Their house was weeks from foreclosure. Their obsession with mine made sense now. They weren't just angry, they were desperate. At deposition, my lawyer questioned them calmly. When Mom tried to keep her righteous tone, he presented the forged screenshots. Our expert shows these came from Dean's phone. Would you like to revise your answer? For once she had no reply. Power shifted. I wasn't just defending anymore. I organized every piece of evidence into a weapon: IP logs, notarized statements, insurance letters, security footage, even their foreclosure notice. HR offered to testify to my character. Family members I'd shown the truth to began backing off Dean. He kept posting cryptic digs, oblivious. The night before the hearing, Mom called sugar sweet. There's still time to make this right. Sign over the house or at least sell it and give Dean the profit. I laughed. It's already ugly. Tomorrow it gets public, she warned. You'll regret this, maybe once, not now. On court day, I wore my best suit, combat ready. My lawyer handed their attorney our forensic analysis plus a list of counterclaims: harassment, attempted fraud, defamation. Their attorney's face went pale. For the first time in months, I held the cards, and tucked behind my folder was their foreclosure notice. My ace. If they pushed me, I was ready to expose everything. Sitting in that courtroom, papers neatly arranged, I felt a strange calm. For months I'd been on defense, reacting to every blow. Now I was on offense, and as the judge prepared to call our case, I realized something. Buying my first home hadn't stolen my brother's future, it had saved mine. If this story hit you in the gut, you're not alone. Too many people work hard only to be punished by those closest to them. Don't let anyone guilt you out of what you've earned. Share this story, drop a comment about your own experience, and subscribe for more true tales of resilience and hard choices.